Are you ready to dive into this whole Satoshi thing again?
Always ready for a good crypto mystery.
Right. Well, this time we've got a new chapter, I guess you could say, thanks to this HBO documentary, Money Electric, the Bitcoin mystery. Have you seen it?
I have, yeah. It's definitely something.
So for anyone who hasn't had the chance to watch it yet, it basically throws out all the usual suspects.
Yeah, throws you for a loop right from the start.
Exactly. Like, we've all heard the theories about Dorian Nakamoto, Craig Wright, even Hal Finney, right?
Right, the usual suspects.
But this documentary, they go in a completely different direction.
They point the finger at Peter Todd.
Peter Todd. Okay, so for people who don't know who that is, give us a little background.
So Peter Todd, he's a Bitcoin core developer, been involved with Bitcoin for years, pretty well known in the community.
Okay, so not just some random name pulled out of a hat.
No, not at all. He's been around.
So does the documentary just come right out and say, Peter Todd is Satoshi Nakamoto?
Well, they kind of build up to it. You know, they use a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Oh, circumstantial evidence. Like,
Well, they dig through all these old forum posts. They analyze coding styles. They even, break down word choices.
It's intense.
Yeah, they're trying to piece together a puzzle with, digital fingerprints and stuff.
Okay, so what's the most, mind-blowing piece of evidence they present?
Well, one that really stood out to me was this exchange on the BitcoinTalk forum from way back in 2010. It's pretty technical, but basically Peter Todd, he corrects something Satoshi had posted about how Bitcoin handles transactions.
Okay, and that's supposed to be evidence because...
Well, on the surface, it just seems like a technical correction, right? But the documentary suggests that maybe, just maybe, this was Todd accidentally posting under the wrong account.
Oh, I see. Like he forgot which hat he was wearing.
Exactly. Like replying "love you too" to a mass email about your aunt's cat or something.
Yeah, been there, done that. Not with Bitcoin, though.
Right. But in this case, it's not just any old email. We're talking about the underlying code of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So Hoback, the filmmaker, he's arguing that this could be a slip-up, a subconscious hint that Todd knows more than he's letting on.
Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle. What else you got?
So there's this other instance where Todd is in a chat log, and he describes himself as an expert at making Bitcoins irretrievable.
Okay.
And the documentary presents this as a veiled confession, as if he's admitting to helping make Satoshi's Bitcoin fortune inaccessible.
Hold on a second. That seems like a bit of a stretch. Couldn't he just be talking about his skills as a developer, knowing how to make transactions secure?
Oh, absolutely. You're right to question that. It's important to remember that a lot of this is interpretation. Hoback is connecting the dots.
Yeah.
But whether those connections actually hold up, that's a whole other discussion.
Right. So we've got this potential forum slip-up and a statement that could mean a bunch of different things. What else is the documentary using to build their case?
So another thing they bring up is Nakamoto's coding style, which has been described as kind of amateurish compared to a lot of the other top programmers back then.
Interesting.
And this lines up with Todd's background at the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't exactly known as this coding prodigy like some of the other potential Satoshi candidates.
So they're basically saying, if it walks like a duck.
And quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, correlation doesn't equal causation, right? There could be a million reasons why these things might seem similar without Todd actually being Satoshi.
Good point.
Yeah.
So what does Peter Todd have to say about all of this? I mean, I can't imagine he's too thrilled about being labeled the creator of Bitcoin out of nowhere.
Yeah. Not surprisingly, he's denied it.
Yeah.
Pretty forcefully, actually. Called the whole thing ludicrous.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, can you imagine being this guy, Peter Todd, going about your business, and suddenly you're being accused of being this shadowy Bitcoin billionaire?
Right, exactly. It's a huge claim to make. And the thing is, he's actually used the phrase, "I am Satoshi," before.
Really? See, now that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's wait a minute, is this a confession? But you have to look at the context. He's always used that phrase as a way to sort of express solidarity with Nakamoto's desire for privacy, not as an actual admission of identity.
Right, like that whole I am Spartacus.
Exactly. Everyone claims to be Spartacus to protect the real one.
Except in this case, it's I am Satoshi, and instead of freedom, we're talking about potentially billions of dollars.
Yeah, the stakes are a little higher. And it kind of shows you how risky it can be to even speculate about Satoshi's identity.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd himself has said he's worried that being falsely identified could make him a target.
Yeah.
Criminals who might come after him thinking he's sitting on this massive Bitcoin fortune.
Which is a lot of Bitcoin we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. One estimate I saw said Satoshi's wallets could hold around 1 million Bitcoins.
1 million? That's just crazy. How much money is that even?
Honestly, it's almost impossible to comprehend. We're talking more than the GDP of some countries.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just some internet mystery. It's real money, real
Yep.
power.
right? This isn't just about putting a name to a face. This is about who controls a huge chunk of the world's wealth and what happens to Bitcoin if that person's identity is revealed.
Right, so it's not just about who Satoshi is, but what their identity means for Bitcoin itself.
Exactly. And for the whole world of finance, really. It raises all sorts of questions about how we think about digital currency privacy power. It's a big deal.
Okay, so we've got this documentary making some pretty bold claims, a potential Satoshi candidate denying everything, and enough money involved to make your head spin. But this isn't the first time someone's been accused of being Satoshi, right?
Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
This is just the latest chapter in a long line of attempts to unmask Bitcoin's creator. Remember that whole thing with Dorian Nakamoto back in 2014?
Newsweek, I think it was.
Yep. Newsweek ran this huge story claiming they'd found Satoshi, and it turned out to be completely wrong.
Yeah, poor guy. Just goes to show how hard it is to separate fact from fiction in all of this.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the Craig Wright saga.
Oh, yeah, Craig Wright.
Yeah.
That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Right. He's been claiming to be Satoshi for years now. But a lot of people don't buy it. He just hasn't been able to prove it definitively.
It's like everyone wants to be Satoshi until they actually have to prove it. But before we get too far off track, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the lead up to this HBO documentary. You said there was a lot of buzz online, especially in those prediction markets.
Oh, yeah. The crypto community loves a good prediction market.
So explain that to me. Like, what are we talking about here?
So basically, it's like gambling, but instead of betting on horses or cards, you're betting on future events. And in this case, people were putting money on who the documentary would name as Satoshi.
Wow. So you could actually bet on who you thought was Satoshi. That's wild. Was there like a clear favorite?
For a while, it seemed like everyone was betting on Len Sassaman. He was a really well-known cryptographer, died young back in 2011. And the timing of his death, it kind of lined up with when Satoshi disappeared from online forums. So people have always wondered if there was a connection.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely suspicious timing. But you said for a while he was the favorite. Did something change?
It did. Right before the documentary came out, suddenly everyone started betting on like they knew something was up.
Oh, so there were rumors? Maybe some leaked information?
Could be. Someone knew something. But yeah, it was like a whole crypto world was holding its breath, waiting to see if the documentary would confirm their theories.
That's amazing. So we've got this whole mystery surrounding Satoshi's identity. But beyond the intrigue, beyond the whodunit aspect of it all, there's a bigger question here, right? Why does it even matter who Satoshi is?
That's the million Bitcoin question, isn't it? And it's not an easy one to answer.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, right?
Right.
Like, a lot of people might hear this and think, who cares? It's just some internet trivia. But you're saying it's way bigger than that.
Way bigger. Think about it. This isn't just about some anonymous hacker in their basement. If Satoshi were to come forward today with those early Bitcoin wallets, they'd be one of the richest people on the planet.
Yeah, you said 1 million Bitcoins? Like, how much money is that even?
It's an insane amount. More than the GDP of most countries.
Seriously?
Seriously. So we're not just talking about one person's bank account. We're talking about a level of wealth that could shift global markets, influence governments. It's a lot of power for one person to have.
Wow. Okay, so it's the money, but it's also the power that comes with it. But what about Bitcoin itself? How would knowing Satoshi's identity change things?
That's the big question, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, revealing Satoshi could be seen as legitimizing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Taking away the anonymity, making it seem more real to people who are still skeptical.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then there's the whole decentralization thing.
Exactly. Bitcoin is supposed to be this decentralized system.
Yeah.
No single point of control, no leader.
Right.
But if suddenly there's a face, a name attached to it, does that change things?
Right. Like, does it become Satoshi's coin all of a sudden?
Exactly. And would governments be more or less likely to embrace it if they knew who was behind it? These are all questions that nobody has the answer to.
It's crazy to think that one person's identity could have such a huge impact.
Right. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's not just about technology or money. It's about the philosophical questions, too. Anonymity, decentralization, the power of ideas. It really makes you think.
It does. Well, I guess the mystery continues for now. Who knows? Maybe we'll never find out who Satoshi really is.
Maybe not. But the search is half the fun, right?
That's one way to look at it. All right, folks, there you have it. Another deep dive into the world of crypto and all its weirdness. We'll be back next time with more so. Until then, stay curious.